G'day guys, welcome to another episode of Covid Convos where we have real conversations with real people about what wellbeing looks like in a pandemic. A very real person joining me today. Kesh, how are you?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you? What's this? We missed you yesterday. How you feeling? You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. As I was saying just before we started recording, I'm feeling a bit beat down by it all, but we might have time to dig into it either today or another day. I think I'll be all right.
All
But
right.
I digress. Fantastic to have also with us Shayne. How are you, Shayne?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me, guys. It's an absolute pleasure.
Great to have you with us, mate. And do you want to start by just introducing yourself to people watching and I guess giving us a background on what you do and what you think or what you'd like people to know about you?
Great. That's a loaded question. My name's Shayne Hood. First of all, I'm a human being. And I guess the things that I do really is I work a lot with young people that experience great disadvantage, specifically with young people that are under child protection orders, mainly under child protection orders, so in the foster care system or what they call out-of-home care system. So really around working a capabilities approach with young people, so as opposed to looking at young people for their deficits or problems, but really around capabilities. But I guess where I come from is I was very similar to a lot of young people that I work with. I had a very relatable upbringing. So I'm a big representative of what I call my people. So people that have experienced a lot of disadvantage, but have been able to come out of it. So yeah, I think that's probably about it. I think that's about it.
So just on that, your approach there, Shayne, you were saying focusing more on capabilities, which sounds very much in line with sort of a lot of what we've learned, a lot of what we're about as well. How does that differ to, like, obviously it does differ to what the traditional approach is. And if that's not correct, feel free to let me know. But how does it differ and why does it differ and why do you like that approach?
I think that really it's how it differs from the traditional approach. The traditional approach, without getting too far into it, is really like a welfare model, I guess, which is focused on fixing problems or what I say, fixing people. And a capabilities approach is really around how we're seeing people for their strengths, and how we're seeing people as an asset to community rather than a problem for people to fix, and how we're investing in those spaces. So what are we doing to invest in that rather than just seeing people for that, but what are we doing to invest collectively in that? So it sounds like it makes a lot of sense, but it's quite different to the way the system runs. So it's I won't say that I'm a revolutionary worker. There's fantastic workers that do this work in a lot of spaces, but yeah, I think that it's proven that it brings a lot of results with young people.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on with us today, Shayne, was exactly that mentality, which resonates with us, with post-psych people, and basically what post-psych was an answer to psychology and this clinical model of, people are sick and we have to fix them. So positive psychology is bringing that thing, well, what's right with people and how do we build that, which seems like it's being paralleled over in the youth space. So I love how all of these different disciplines are sort of finding their own language, talk about a very similar concept, which is investing in assets rather than fixing problems. But I'm curious, given everything that's going on, and the purpose of this show is to explore what well-being looks like in a pandemic, how is your life and your work being affected right now? What's your experience given everything that's happening with COVID?
I think I've had a bit of a unique experience. My position, I was a project manager in this space at a statewide level, and I was just made redundant right before all of this had happened. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because I really wanted to get into consultancy and work directly with organisations working with young people. And I guess that's really affected things in a big way, because consultancy is a bit hard to get at this moment. There's not a lot of work going around. So how it's affected my life is the work doesn't stop for me. I'm not in it for the paycheck, so none of it stops. The last 2-3 weeks, I've been out in my studio recording, making resources for young people that I've worked with. Just making lots and lots of things to maybe we can talk a little bit about them a bit later, but really investing back into the space, just because I think right now it's needed, I believe. And yeah, I think that in terms of being at home, it's been quite good to spend time with family, and which has been really cool. But yeah, I guess having the disconnection from friends and community can be a challenging space to be in, for sure.
I think, why wait? Let's dig into it, man. Tell me about, what are you recording? What do you mean by recording?
Yeah, great. So first of all, for the last 12 months, I've been working on developing resources, so personal development resources for people that have experienced great disadvantage. So really, it's the concepts that I talk about are very like, they're not like brand new concepts or anything like that, but I guess that the idea is how they're framed to speak to people. I say my people a lot, but people that I guess have lived quite a lot of disadvantage, and there's just a certain I guess BS detector real quick. And I think my work sort of really eradicates that BS detector.
It's about talking to them in a way that they understand. Yeah, absolutely.
I like I said, I was in a very similar situation, and I had the biggest BS detector in the world.
Well, because I feel you, man, because I grew up in Western Sydney, and sometimes I walk into places and I forget that I'm putting on Western Sydney, and people don't get it, people don't understand it. But when you go home, those same people, no one in my area is going to listen to them. So it's really important.
That's it, man. And I think that that's the biggest key. So I've been working on a lot of that. And then also, actually, with another one of your guests, Megan, I've been speaking to her a lot. I've been creating a resource for young people in out-of-home care that are currently in, I guess, forced isolation or distance from people. And they're at home in, challenging environments. And so I've been trying to create some resources. So I've just created a poster of 10 things you can do that are kind of dope, like in isolation. And also creating some video resources. So just trying to look at different ways of learning. So poster being visual, writing, and then creating visual resources in terms of like video. So just so it's accessible for everybody. So that's been my...
Sorry, Shayne. I was just going to ask, because I guess one of the benefits of having people like myself and Kesh is that we're quite different. So I don't have that background at all that you guys obviously have experience in, with, I guess, seeing, even just being exposed to people who are at extreme levels of disadvantage. So I guess I'm interested to dig into it a little bit more, knowing that there'll be a lot of people potentially listening who have that same experience, don't really understand. So firstly, I'd say, is there anything, I guess, right now, what would a potentially somebody's life who's living at extreme disadvantage look like in this COVID situation?
Well, I could speak for young people that I work with. there's a range of different situations I guess people are experiencing disadvantage could be in. But the young people I work with are generally in what's called out-of-home care. So they're under a child protection order. So they've been forcibly removed from their home for safety reasons and placed in what are called residential care units. So that's their staffed units, 24-hour staffed units. And it's quite openly a broken system. So they're kind of putting very traumatized young people all in a situation of potential further trauma, which is what happens quite a lot of the time. And the system that we spoke about earlier, really working on fixing them and fixing their problems, and it has not worked whatsoever.
Well, really inherent in that, just really quickly, Shayne, inherent in that urge to fix, which sometimes comes from good intentions, other times not, is the implicit understanding that you're broken.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of young people in these situations I'd say a lot, quite a majority of them are in the prison system, in our justice system. So young people from out-of-home care settings, there's an overrepresentation of them in juvenile justice. There's a little bit of, and especially in the media, there's a big focus on kids in juvenile justice being bad kids, this or that, but most of them are under state care. So while they're saying that, the government's actually saying that they're poor parents, like they haven't been good parents to these young people because they're in state care. So I guess being in those situations where they're, isolated in units, it could feel, it's a controversial thing to say, but it could feel like prison to a lot of young people to be in that kind of isolation. And I say isolation purposefully because it definitely is that kind of situation where I'd say anybody else, language to me, echoing what Megan said before, is it's social distancing with, increased contact. But I think with a lot of young people I work with, it's actually, or should I say physical distancing with increased contact or social contact. But I think with a lot of young people I work with, it really is isolation. It really would feel like isolation. So I'm really passionate about working with workers to work in a capabilities-based approach while young people are in that situation. So, working in really positive ways with young people that are focused on strengths and activities that are leading towards, allowing young people to promote those strengths.
I just want to jump in there because, you've done an awesome job there, Shayne, sharing a little bit about the real life context and some of the stories that go on. But, when I think of disadvantage, the stories are multitude, but I think the essence comes down to basic needs for a variety of reasons not being met, right? And because those basic needs are not being met, and probably compounded with trauma, it set kids back, right? So whatever we expect of normal, that's not these kids' life. And that's what we really mean by disadvantage. So I like to think of like Maslow's pyramid. Megan's pretty fond of that as well. But yeah, when you don't have a stable home, or you don't have access to security in terms of food, nourishment, how can, if you don't have stability, how can you then educate yourself and move forward and do all these things? And in fact, in most cases, you don't have the support networks to be able to pull you out of that. So, all of those things compound together, and disadvantage looks different every single time. And that's what makes it such a hard beast to fight, right?
Absolutely. But I'd definitely say that the resilience of the young people I work with is absolutely through the roof. Like they're the most amazing young people, given that, the pressures that they have to face all the time and the focus that a lot of people have on their trauma and all of that kind of stuff. These young people just shine through. I tell you what, like, and like I said, this is why I get so passionate about the capabilities approach. It's not just because it's ethical, it's because it works. And young people respond to it. And I've worked with every young person under the sun. Like, people go, oh, what about young people that are in and out of prison or this and that? And I'm like, yeah, they're people. They're called human beings. Like, they're still people. And there's a Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you heard of Viktor Frankl, but he's yeah, right. And he talks about everybody having a spark. And that's the thing that hits me all the time, is everybody does have a spark. It's just, unfortunately, a lot of people's spark is buried under levels of trauma that people try to pull, they try to remove all of the levels of trauma to get to the spark, but that's not how sparks eventuate. It's going straight to the spark and rising out of it. And that's what young people show all the time.
I want to dig into that, man, because I think it's such an important piece. I mean, I reflect back on my childhood, kind of growing up with family violence and a little bit of disadvantage. I had a lot of privileges as well, but one of the things that I'm finding at this particular time is I grew up in a lot of uncertainty, and this is, almost feels like I'm at home in this. And you're talking about kids being exceptionally resilient. I feel like there are certain strengths and skills that you build. I'm just wondering how you go about finding the spark with the kids that you work with.
Simple is holding belief. I think, as I say, holding. This is a lot of. I do a lot of training with workers around this work, and a lot of workers will say, "Oh, but we tried to talk about self-esteem, and they threw their food across them." And I'm like, yeah, cool. That's generally what lack of self-belief looks like, So it's you're working with a lot of people that don't believe in themselves. Like, that's the reality. But who holds that belief? And what does holding belief look like? So it's not just believing and just hoping. It's actually investing in belief. So what does it look like to invest in belief? And, it starts with, having, I'm sure you've heard of like coaching conversations through maybe, I think, positive psych, like work in, do you guys do motivational coaching and things like that?
It comes up, but I think we could do a little bit of a short explainer.
Yeah, so it's really about how do you create spaces for self-directed learning instead of trying to fix people. So, but it starts out in some pretty tough spaces when you're working with young people that have experienced, great disadvantage and not having a lot of belief in themselves. But it's holding that space, and I call it work with slow things down to speed things up instead of speed things up to slow things down, if that makes sense. So, slow things down and you'll get, better and more meaningful results, or speed things up, which is what a lot of people in the system, or I shouldn't say people, but more the system really looks at, like how to fix people.
How to get results quick, like efficiency.
Yeah, and it slows things way down. It keeps people in the system. And I say that to, it's not from just an opinion. The data actually, it screams this. So especially young people I work with in out-of-home care, they're actually thrown out onto, that they lose a lot of their workers and a lot of their support at 18. And the statistics show that 28% of them have what are called leaving care plans. So that means that up to 72% don't have support when they're leaving. So that can happen for a range of different reasons. But then in our work around working in a capabilities approach, it's actually quite the opposite. I think it's up to 80% of young people experience really great results. So it makes so much sense, but I guess that there's a welfare approach has been ruling for quite a long time. So so it gets these poor.
Shayne, I was just interested. You've got such a passion there. Sorry, I might have cut you off with a bit of the lag in connection here. I thought you'd finished.
No.
Just interested. You got such a passion for the area, and I hope it's not too much of a personal question, but so feel free to just step around it if it is. But what gave you that belief, and what I'm looking for is what impacted you to make you want to have that impact on others?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I had people that believed in me, but I don't know if I had that kind of story. I think that eventually happened, but I think my driving passion was, I'd experienced quite a lot of disadvantage in my own upbringing. So, Kesh, I feel you, like lots of family violence in my own home. Lots of criminality in my life, a lot of criminality in my life. So it was pretty much all I knew at one stage of my life. And I think it was just seeing my direct community suffering. I think that was one of the big things, seeing friends pass away, seeing countless friends get locked up, seeing almost like I say a virus of not believing in themselves, and I think that the results of that were unbelievable for me. So I just I think that's the biggest passion is where I'm from and my area, and then to add to that, just working with young people and in a capabilities based approach and seeing the unbelievable things that they can achieve, where you can, it's a beautiful thing to say, oh, some people will go, oh, you're a great worker, look at all the things that you achieved with this young person. And I'm like, if they only really knew that like 95% of that achievement was actually the young person, 5% was guidance and creating spaces for young people to learn. But I think that's one of the biggest passions, to actually see it work. I hope that answers the question.
Oh man, so grateful that you've been able to come on today, man. One of the things that's been, rattling away in the back of my mind is we're going to come out of this thing with so much trauma, right? Like there's going to be pain. And what I think you've given our listeners is a way forward that is going to be the most impactful. Because if you do have that thing of, we're going to rush to fix people and, we need to fix this pain, but that's telling people, there's something wrong with you, right? Rather than this approach that you have, let's step back, let's look for that spark, let's show some belief. And that is going to allow them to do that for themselves. And I think that is such an important message moving forward for all the people that are going to be working with young people that have experienced, isolation, anxiety, grief during all of this. So I'm really grateful for that, man.
Thank you.
I guess the question is, will there be anyone who hasn't experienced something by the end of this? It'd be, I would say, I guess in the minority is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just speaking a little bit about my experience there. Shayne, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and sharing with us as you have. It's been really really interesting for me to hear. Like I said, it's not really an area of familiarity for me, so it's been a real insight, and I hope it has been for other people too. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, both of you, Kesh, Grigsy. What you're doing is a fantastic thing. I'm as a member of community, I'm really appreciative of what you both are doing. And I've watched a couple of episodes, and it's really, really good stuff.
Before we sign off, though, Shayne, I just want to know if there's any other things that you really want to get off your brain. You want to tell the people at home before we let you go.
Yeah, there is actually. I think one of the things that I'd like to tell people is there's a lot of fear and anxiety being promoted to us at the moment, especially on social media. It's filling our news feeds. It's some pretty scary stuff. And I think it's important to know what you need to know. So know what you need to do to keep yourself safe and your community safe. But I think the thing that I really would like to sort of pass on is for people to start, like, I guess, removing all of that stuff from their newsfeed, removing all of the things that are going to make them anxious and scared, and just know what they need to know and start really investing in things that are going to make you stronger, make you more peaceful, and make you more resilient in a time like this. It's so important. And to top all of that off, self-care, self-care, self-care. Make sure you're looking after yourself, doing things that that you love to do, and things that bring you peace.
Awesome. Great advice, mate, and a great way to wind it up there. Thank you once again for joining us. And I'd just like to finish, I guess, by saying that, as always, if you've liked what you've heard here, you can share, like, and subscribe. And in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and you stay healthy, world.